if you like, notion of taking the century's poetry decade by decade, is that I've had to make my own rules about what is meant by a poem's appearance. Do I mean when it was written or when it was published? Usually I've gone for publication, the moment when a poem becomes public property. Later in the series I've broken that rule in the case of Hopkins and Emily Dickinson and one or two others. But I've not broken it here in the case of Keats. Keats died in Rome in February 1821. His Ode on a Grecian Urn had been published almost exactly a year before in Annals of the Fine Arts. It had been written 8 months before that, in May 1819, and I was tempted to fit it in earlier. But it makes better sense, I think, to mark the beginning of this 1820-1829 decade with a very famous poem whose publication inaugurates it, though that isn't how it can have seemed at the time.
Thou still unravished bride of quietness, thou foster child of silence and slow time, sylvan historian, who canst thus express a flowery tale more sweetly than our rhyme? What leaf-fringed legend haunts about thy shape, of deities or mortals or of both, in Tempe or the dales of Arcady? What men or gods are these? What maidens loath? What mad pursuit? What struggle to escape? What pipes and timbrels? What wild ecstasy? Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. Therefore, ye soft pipes, play on. Not to the sensual ear, but more endeared, pipe to the spirit, ditties of no tone. Fair youth, beneath the trees thou canst not leave thy song, nor ever can those trees be bare. Bold lover, never, never canst thou kiss, though winning near the goal, yet do not grieve. She cannot fade, though thou hast not thy bliss. Forever wilt thou love, and she be fair. Ah, happy, happy boughs, that cannot shed your leaves nor ever bid the spring adieu, and happy melodist, unwearied, forever piping songs forever new. More happy love, more happy, happy love, forever warm and still to be enjoyed, forever panting and forever young, all breathing human passion far above, that leaves a heart high sorrowful and cloyed, a burning forehead and a parching tongue. Who are these coming to the sacrifice? To what green altar, O mysterious priest, leadst thou that heifer lowing at the skies, and all her silken flanks with garlands dressed? What little town, by river or seashore, or mountain built with peaceful citadel, is emptied of this folk this pious morn? And, little town, thy streets forevermore will silent be, and not a soul to tell why thou art desolate can e'er return. O Attic shape, fair attitude, with breed of marble men and maidens overwrought, with forest branches and the trodden weed, thou, silent form, dost tease us out of thought as doth eternity. Cold pastoral, when old age shall this generation waste, thou shalt remain, in midst of other woe than ours, a friend to man, to whom thou sayest, beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all ye know on earth, and all ye need to know.
For a long time, Keats's Bright Star sonnet was thought to be his last poem, because he wrote it out for Joseph VII in late 1820, as they set out for Italy together. It now seems almost certain to date from the year before. As for publication, well, here I break another rule. Its first appearance wasn't until 17 years after Keats's death, in, of all places, the Plymouth and Devonport Weekly Journal in 1838.
Bright star, would I were steadfast as thou art, not in lone splendor hung aloft the night, and watching with eternal lids apart, like nature's patient, sleepless eremite, the moving waters at their priest-like task of pure ablution round earth's human shores, or gazing on the new soft fallen mask of snow upon the mountains and the moors. No, yet still steadfast, still unchangeable, pillowed upon my fair love's ripening breast, to feel forever its soft fall and swell, awake forever in a sweet unrest, still, still to hear her tender taken breath, and so live ever, or else swoon to death.
This decade saw in turn the deaths of Keats, of Shelley, and of Byron. Byron's few remarks about Keats are a mixture of sympathy, condescension, and ribaldry, but there's no doubt about the eloquent weightiness of Shelley's tribute. Adonais, which was published in the year of Keats's death, was always subtitled as an elegy on him. Here are two substantial sections of what is, of course, a much longer poem.
He has outsoared the shadow of our night. Envy and calumny and hate and pain and that unrest which men miscall delight can touch him not and torture not again. From the contagion of the world's slow stain he is secure, and now can never mourn a heart grown cold, a head grown grey and vain, nor when the spirit's self has ceased to burn, with sparkless ashes load an unlamented urn. He lives, he wakes, 'tis death is dead, not he. Mourn not for Adonais. Thou, young dawn, turn all thy dew to splendour, for from thee the spirit thou lamentest is not gone. Ye caverns and ye forests, cease to moan, cease, ye faint flowers and fountains, and thou, air, which like a mourning veil thy scarf hadst thrown o'er the abandoned earth, now leave it bare, even to the joyous stars which smile on its despair. He is made one with nature. There is heard his voice in all her music, from the moan of thunder to the song of night's sweet bird. He is a presence to be felt and known in darkness and in light, from herb and stone, spreading itself where'er that power may move, which has withdrawn his being to its own, which wields the world with never wearied love, sustains it from beneath, and kindles it above. He is a portion of the loveliness which once he made more lovely. He doth bear his part, while the one spirit's plastic stress sweeps through the dull, dense world, compelling there all new successions to the forms they wear, torturing the unwilling dross that checks its flight to its own likeness as each mass may bear, and bursting in its beauty and its might from trees and beasts and men into the heavens' light. The splendors of the firmament of time may be eclipsed, but are extinguished not. Like stars to their appointed height they climb, and death is a low mist which cannot blot the brightness it may veil. When lofty thought lifts a young heart above its mortal lair, and love and life contend in it for what shall be its earthly doom, the dead live there, and move like winds of light on dark and stormy air. The one remains, the many change and pass. Heaven's light forever shines, earth's shadows fly. Life, like a dome of many-coloured glass, stains the white radiance of eternity until death tramples it to fragments. Die, if thou wouldst be with that which thou dost seek. Follow where all is fled. Rome's azure sky, flowers, ruins, statues, music, words, are weak, the glory they transfuse with fitting truth to speak. Why linger? Why turn back? Why shrink, my heart? Thy hopes are gone before. From all things here they have departed. Thou shouldst now depart. A light is passed from the revolving year, and man and woman, and what still is dear attracts to crush, repels to make thee wither. The soft sky smiles, The low wind whispers near. 'Tis Adonais calls, oh, hasten thither, no more let life divide what death can join together. That light whose smile kindles the universe, that beauty in which all things work and move, that benediction which the eclipsing curse of birth can quench not, that sustaining love which, through the web of being blindly wove by man and beast and earth and air and sea, burns bright or dim, as each are mirrors of the fire for which all thirst, now beams on me, consuming the last clouds of cold mortality. The breath whose might I have invoked in song descends on me. My spirit's bark is driven far from the shore, far from the trembling throng whose sails were never to the tempest given. The massy earth and sphered skies are riven. I am borne darkly, fearfully afar, whilst burning through the inmost veil of heaven, the soul of Adonais, like a star, beacons from the abode where the eternal are.
Byron's final 3 or 4 years were as prolific and vigorous as those that had gone before. The bulk of Don Juan, still unfinished at his death, and, among much else, the Vision of Judgment, which appeared in The Liberal, one of Leigh Hunt's several successive periodicals, in 1822. The Vision of Judgment was written in a spirit of characteristic travesty, specifically of Southey's poem, A Vision of Judgment, which had been published the year before. Byron's poem has among its dramatis personae St. Peter, George III, and of course Southey himself. But here are some of the stanzas about the king, for which Hunt was prosecuted.
In the first year of freedom's second dawn died George III, although no tyrant, one who shielded tyrants, till each sense withdrawn left him nor mental nor external sun. A better farmer ne'er brushed dew from lawn, a worse king never left a realm undone. He died, but left his subjects still behind, one half as mad, and t'other no less blind. He died. His death made no great stir on earth. His burial made some pomp. There was profusion of velvet, gilding, brass, and no great dearth of aught but tears, save those shed by collusion. For these things may be bought at their true worth. Of elegy there was the due infusion, bought also, and the torches, cloaks, and banners, heralds, and relics of old Gothic manners formed a sepulchral melodrame. Of all the fools who flocked to swell or see the show, who cared about the corpse? The funeral made the attraction, and the black the woe. There throbbed not there a thought which pierced the pall. And when the gorgeous coffin was laid low, it seemed the mockery of hell to fold the rottenness of 80 years in gold. So mix his body with the dust. It might return to what it must far sooner, were the natural compound left alone to fight its way back into earth and fire and air. But the unnatural balsams merely blight what nature made him at his birth, as bare as the mere million's base unmummied clay. Yet all his spices but prolong decay. He's dead, and upper earth with him has done. He's buried. Save the undertaker's bill or lapidary scrawl, the world is gone for him, unless he left a German will. But where's the proctor who will ask his son, in whom his qualities are reigning still, except that household virtue, most uncommon, of constancy to a bad, ugly woman? God save the king. It is a large economy in God to save the like, but if he will be saving, all the better. For not one am I of those who think damnation better still. I hardly know, too, if not quite alone am I, in this small hope of bettering future ill by circumscribing, with some slight restriction, the eternity of hell's hot jurisdiction. I know this is unpopular. I know 'tis blasphemous. I know one may be damned for hoping no one else may e'er be so. I know my catechism. I know we are crammed with the best doctrines till we quite overflow. I know that all, save England's church, have shammed, and that the other twice 200 churches and synagogues have made a damned bad purchase. God help us all. God help me too. I am, God knows, as helpless as the devil can wish, and not a whit more difficult to damn than is to bring to land a late-hooked fish, or to the butcher to purvey the lamb. Not that I'm fit for such a noble dish, as one day will be that immortal fry of almost everybody born to die.
There were quieter voices than that, both younger and older. John Clare, son of a Northamptonshire farm labourer, published 3 collections in the 1820s, without Bloomfield's éclat earlier in the century, but with enough success to encourage him, until he went mad, thinking he was Lord Byron. The Shepherd's Calendar was one of these collections, and from it I've chosen November.
The shepherds almost wonder where they dwell, and the old dog for his right journey stares. The path leads somewhere, but they cannot tell, and neighbour meets with neighbour unawares. The maiden passes close beside her cow, and wanders on, and thinks her far away. The ploughman goes unseen behind his plough, and seems to lose his horses half the day. The lazy mist creeps on in journey slow. The maidens shout and wonder where they go. So dull and dark are the November days. The lazy mist high up the evening curled, and now the morn quite hides in smoke and haze. The place we occupy seems all the world.
Wordsworth, too, was quiet and very prolific, but also by now almost unremittingly dull. He wrote a sequence of sonnets on the River Duddon, published in 1820. Sonnets which begin with such lines as, "Methinks 'twere no unprecedented feat," or "Sad thoughts avaunt, partake we their blithe cheer." But the afterthought to the sequence is a marvellously moving, as well as dignified refining of much he had said before.
I thought of thee, my partner and my guide, as being passed away. Vain sympathies. For backward Duddon as I cast my eyes, I see what was and is and will abide. Still glides the stream and shall forever glide. The form remains, the function never dies. While we, the brave, the mighty, and the wise, we men, who in our morn of youth defied the elements, must vanish, be it so. Enough if something from our hands have power to live and act and serve the future hour, as if, as toward the silent tomb we go, through love, through hope, and faith's transcendent dower, we feel that we are greater than we know.
Finally, set against those grave, muted, finally authoritative lines, another kind of authority. Though George III died in 1820, as we've heard in The Vision of Judgment, so the regency was officially over, and that regent was now George IV and on the throne, much of what we mean by the regency spirit was still alive, caught unerringly in one of its gentlest and sprightliest and wittiest moods by Winthrop Mackworth Praed, old Etonian, Member of Parliament, and consummate light verse writer. His Good Night to the Season had its first magazine publication in 1827.
Good night to the season. 'Tis over. Gay dwellings no longer are gay. The courtier, the gambler, the lover are scattered like swallows away. There's nobody left to invite one, except my good uncle and spouse. My mistress is bathing at Brighton, my patron is sailing at Cowes. For want of a better employment, till Ponto and Don can get out, I'll cultivate rural enjoyment and angle immensely for trout. Good night to the season, the lobbies, their changes and rumours of change, which startled the rustic sub-obbies and made all the bishops look strange. The breaches and battles and blunders performed by the commons and peers, the marquis's eloquent thunders, the baronet's eloquent ears, denouncing of papists and treasons, of foreign dominion and oaths, misrepresentations of reasons and misunderstandings of notes. Good night to the season. The buildings, enough to make Inigo sick. The paintings and plasterings and gildings of stucco and marble and brick. The orders deliciously blended from love of effect into one. The clubhouses only intended, the palaces only begun. The hell where the fiend in his glory sits staring at putty and stones and scrambles from story to story to rattle at midnight his bones. Good night to the season, the dances, the fillings of hot little rooms, the glancings of rapturous glances, the fancyings of fancy costumes, the pleasures which fashion makes duties, the praisings of fiddles and flutes, the luxury of looking at beauties, the tedium of talking to mutes, the female diplomatists, planners of matches for Laura and Jane, the ice of her ladyship's manners, the ice of his lordship's champagne. Good night to the season. The rages led off by the chiefs of the throng, the Lady Matilda's new pages, the Lady Eliza's new song, Miss Fennel's macaw, which at Boodle's is held to have something to say, Miss Splenetic's musical poodles, which bark Betty, Betty all day. The pony Sir Araby sported, as hot and as black as a coal, and the lion his mother imported in bearskins and grease from the pole. Good night to the season. The Toso, so very majestic and tall, Miss Aton, whose singing was so-so, and Pasta, divinest of all. The labour in vain of the ballet, so sadly deficient in stars. The foreigners thronging the alley, exhaling the breath of cigars. The loge, where some heiress, how killing, environed with exquisites sits, the lovely one out of her drilling, the silly ones out of their wits. Good night to the season, the splendour that beamed in the Spanish bazaar, where I purchased, my heart was so tender, a card case, a pasteboard guitar, a bottle of perfume, a girdle, a lithographed Riego full-grown, whom bigotry drew on a hurdle that artists might draw him on stone, a small panorama of Seville, a trap for demolishing flies, a caricature of the devil, and a look from Miss Sheridan's eyes. Good night to the season. The flowers of the grand horticultural fete, when boudoirs were quitted for bowers, and the fashion was not to be late, when all who had money and leisure grew rural, or ices and wines, all pleasantly toiling for pleasure, all hungrily pining for pines, and making of beautiful speeches, and marring of beautiful shows, and feeding on delicate peaches, and treading on delicate toes. Good night to the season. Another will come with its trifles and toys, and hurry away like its brother in sunshine and odour and noise. Will it come with a rose or a briar? Will it come with a blessing or curse? Will its bonnets be lower or higher? Will its morals be better or worse? Will it find me grown thinner or fatter, or fonder of wrong or of right, or married or buried? No matter. Good night to the season. Good night.